Hello. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing really well this weekend. Wanted to talk about a few different things tonight. Pretty much. One second. I had left my other computer on, so it was going to start echoing. All right. So I'm glad to say everybody made it tonight. It's been a pretty eventful week, as we all saw. It's been a really crazy week. And to start with, just going to touch on a couple things from the protest Wednesday, or riots, as the media is calling them. There's been a total of 13 people charged with felony charges at this point. There have been over 40 people charged with DC, district charges, whatever that will entail. They said in addition to the 2 pipe bombs, or supposed pipe bombs, that were found, they confiscated 11 Molotov cocktails. And an interesting thing, I want you to think about this. An interesting thing is the FBI set up a tip line. And, for people to call in and say, hey, I recognize that person I saw in the video, and basically turn them in. And they have had, this tip line's only been up for like 36 hours, and they've already had over 17,000 tips so far. So for those that think their neighbor won't turn them in for whatever reason, this is just evidence they will. Now, I'm not saying I agree with everything that went on there, but of course, a lot of us do not. And, it was... it got out of hand, but it's not like it's the first time we saw this either. We saw actually much worse over the past several months. But I wanted to touch on a couple of the comments here that I saw as I was scrolling earlier, because a couple of them are something that I wanted to get into a little bit and wanted to look at. And it was a comment earlier on how does Trump still have a chance? Forget who left that comment on here, but it basically said, does Trump still have a chance? And the shorter answer to that is no. There's not really any possibility that Trump's going to be able to remain in office at this point, other than just basically, declaring martial law or something to that effect. Something that I definitely do not see him doing. But there's a lot of talk this week of something else, and that's invoking the 25th Amendment. And I'm going to read the exact terminology of the 25th Amendment right here. Section 4 of it states, whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other bodies as Congress may by law provide, transmit the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Now, the reason I wanted to read that is because of what we see going on right now. And what we see going on right now, basically, is Congress, or the House of Representatives, have already introduced articles of impeachment on the president. And, we have to think, there's 11 days left in office, 10, 11 days. What, today's the 9th? So that's 11 days left in office, or 10 and a half. And a lot of people may wonder, why go through the trouble of impeaching the president right now? And the reason for that is there may not be enough time for the Senate to actually hold a trial and impeach the president and take him out of office. I mean, there probably just simply isn't going to be enough time to do that. But the goal to this isn't just taking him out of office, but if they do follow through with the articles of impeachment, they can prevent Trump from ever running for any type of public office again. And that could be done after the election, or after, not the election, but after Biden is sworn in as the new president on the 20th. So to me, it looks more like a plan to avert any future attempt by Trump to run for office. And that's what it looks like they're doing. Now, Nancy Pelosi said she's going to go forward with this unless Mike Pence invokes the 25th Amendment. And, She's basically given the deadline of Monday on that. I agree, Ghost. He's not incapable or incapacitated. You know, there's a lot of debate. People look at his remarks and they say he was inciting violence. But I've heard, you know, if that's true, then let's go look at the remarks of all the public officials over the last year that were encouraging people. The mayor of Chicago, let them burn stuff, let them riot. You know, I mean, there's a lot of that that's going on, and nobody ever did anything. And this is past being a problem. This is going to be something that dictates our future. And that goes right along with, yes, Michael, I do want to talk about that in a minute. About streaming on different platforms, because I don't believe YouTube's going to be here much longer. Not for people like me. It's not going to be here for me. They already hit my videos. They're already hitting my other videos. I don't know, for those of you that watch the channel for a long time, you know, when I first started, me and my sons did this little video series where we pretended like the grid was down. And, you know, we were trying to help each other and survive in the woods kind of deal. Just a funny series. YouTube struck it. And that, I mean, that was 5 years ago, you know, that I put those videos up. And some of those actually got removed from YouTube for being inappropriate material. And it's getting really crazy. I don't expect to be able to be on YouTube much longer, because I'm not going to sanitize my content, as you know, as you may put it. I'm going to speak my mind. But keep in mind, you know, SeriousSurvivor.com. I've just signed up at Podbean, which is a podcast site that's going to allow me to do podcasts and post them on SeriousSurvivor.com. And since those, I own that site, I should be able to post freely on it, you know, until it gets worse. I had started sites on Parler and Rumble, and I got one on Patreon, and my Patreon site's free. You know, it doesn't require membership. You can go there and see what I post on there. It doesn't require anything. But these other ones are starting to censor too. Rumble, from some videos I was watching those other prepper channels earlier today, they were stating basically that Rumble has been actually hitting their content on there. So it's just a matter of time before all of these sites do that. And the reason is because basically one of three entities controls the entire internet. Think about that. One of three entities. You can't name a website, an online business, a platform online that is not controlled by either Google, Microsoft, or Apple. And when those three entities decide, hey, Serious Survivor shouldn't be saying what he's saying, there's nowhere for me to go at that point. They control the internet, three companies. And, you know, we might think we have these other internet service providers. You know, you can find other internet service providers and all that, but they're all using the same framework. They're using that Microsoft framework. And if Microsoft begins to object as strongly as Google and Apple are, then we're really in for a ride. We're not even going to be able to communicate with each other. The censorship has been turned up by 100 here in the last couple of days. Now, we saw that President Trump, you know, he got basically banned off of Twitter, and then they reinstated him for a minute, and then he tweeted that he wasn't going to go to the inauguration, and then they banned him indefinitely. And now Facebook has banned him. All right. Now, whether somebody supports Trump or not, whether you like Trump, whether you love his tweets, hate his tweets, it doesn't matter. But we have to look at one thing. This is the president of the United States. The president of the United States. He's not going to be for long. He's not going to be for long. That's true. But he is currently the sitting president of the United States, technically one of the most powerful people in the world. Twitter and Facebook just banned him. If somebody with 88 million followers on Twitter gets banned, imagine how much revenue Twitter lost by banning him. So if they can take that big of a hit, how hard is it going to be for them, or, you know, how much of a problem is it going to be for them to ban me, or to ban you, or to ban the people that you like to watch and listen to on there? This is basically setting a precedence right here. They're starting from the top down. They're banning the big one, and then they're just going to systematically ban everyone who doesn't basically say the things that they want them to say. And this censorship is it's getting extremely drastic and draconian. You know, that's a pretty serious word. A lot of people don't realize how serious of a word that is. That's a very serious word. And we see things like on Twitter. One of the recent trends on Twitter in the last 2 days was hashtag hang Mike Pence. Okay, that's there. Twitter allows, and Facebook, they allow the Ayatollah Khomeini from Iran to post death to America. They allow all of the other nations of the world, leaders that basically flat out say, like North Korea's leader, he came out and said, or tweeted the other day, I think it was yesterday, he tweeted that if something isn't done to ease the restrictions on North Korea that were put on them by the Trump administration, that he's going to start developing much more advanced long-range missiles and long-range technology. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it said. And you can find that tweet by just, looking for it. Now, if that right there alone, we saw how Biden and Obama performed when it comes to countries like this, when it comes to countries that threatened us. They basically caved in with this lead from behind strategy. That doesn't work. And I got a bad feeling that we're going to see some pretty bad stuff over the course of this year right here. It's going to be a very, very difficult year. LA Prepper, you're right. Controlling the narrative is worth any cost to those who are doing it. Yeah, they're willing to sacrifice a few bucks to shut people up. Now, me, I don't have that. I've got, like I said before, 32,000 subscribers. So it's not like I'm a mainstream personality or anything, and I'm not trying to be. But you have a lot of people out there that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, that millions of subscribers, a lot of these channels, and they're going to be shut down. I mean, if you come onto YouTube one day and all your channels are just gone and you haven't got any notifications, you know what's going on there. And this is not far away. Yeah, it should be, Mike. It should be under Serious Survivor. I hope they haven't censored me there, because for those that saw the last live cast, that I got cut off. I don't know, towards the middle of it. I'm not sure exactly. I went back and watched it, but trying to figure out what I said to, sort of make YouTube mad at me. I mean, I don't really care. They can get mad at me, but dang. Okay, Mike, I'm going to check that out. Thank you for bringing that to my attention on there. Thank you. All right. Now, Nancy Pelosi she has been saying some absolutely ridiculous things this week. Like, she's been on TV saying there are precautions in place to prevent Trump from launching nuclear weapons. I'm sorry, but I don't really see Trump just up and launching nuclear weapons. I don't think many people actually do. If you do, I mean, you got the man figured all wrong. I don't think he wants to start a nuclear war. I don't think he wants to start one, because there's not going to be a real winner in that. It's going to be a completely desolate, a desolate landscape at that point. Y'all know I've done a lot of videos on nuclear war and nuclear weapons, and I've done a lot of research in it. And one of my degrees is in physics. So, that's a subject that's always interested me to a degree, as far as, nuclear reactions, chain reactions, and things like that. So I've done a lot of research in it, and that's not a scenario that I see someone just out of spite because he lost the election, pretty much just starting a nuclear war. That just doesn't make sense. If you wanted, if I had to say, anything that he would do to keep him in office, martial law would definitely be more possible than just him launching nukes on another country, because that's gonna cause an all-out nuclear war, and he lost the battle he's trying to fight at that point. So this is all ridiculous what we're seeing. It's ridiculous. And now we see a very emboldened government. We see a government that is completely blue. And, I always say the government should be split. I've never thought that all of the government should be red or all of it should be blue. It should be split so that we do have resistance on both sides, that people can present different ideas, and we can be open to those and listen to them and see what works and what don't. Because when it's all one-sided, then you basically have one set of ideas that are being pushed. And in this case, they're going to be enforced into law. There's not anything we can do. With a 50-50 Congress, then, if there is a tie, it's going to be Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. And this goes back also to the 25th Amendment. I remember back this summer that Nancy Pelosi made a big deal about the 25th Amendment. She started talking about it. She wanted to make some changes to it. But she made a very specific statement, And that statement was that this is not intended for Donald Trump. This is intended for future presidents. That future president is most likely Joe Biden. I mean, if we really look at Joe Biden, he's rode the bench. I mean, honestly, what has Joe Biden ever really done? Can anybody name something he's done? I can't, and I followed politics for a while now. And I can't name anything that Biden's actually done. He's always been a puppet. He's been doing what other people tell him to do. And that's exactly what we saw right now, is in my opinion, and here we go, another YouTube strike, but we elected a puppet, not we, but a puppet was elected as the president of the United States. He's not going to be there long. I don't believe he will. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll come back and eat those words 6 months from now. But I believe that the 25th Amendment is directed at Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. I mean, they might try and push it right now. They might. But I also believe that Biden, we've all seen, there are so many, if you want to call them highlight reels of Biden saying just off the wall things, talking about learning about roaches and rubbing kids' legs and stuff like that. I mean, just go look it up if you don't believe me on that. But it's absolutely crazy. And I do believe he will be taken out of office, and that will give us Kamala Harris as president and Nancy Pelosi as vice president. Let's let that sink in. Where will that take us? Because you talk about two of the most radical leftists that are out there. And, I'm all for listening to other ideas. I'm all for compromise, making things better for everybody. But they're not. And that's the problem. They're about pushing their agenda and making things better for themselves, while we are the ones that's going to suffer. And we're the ones that's already suffering. I mean, I felt the pinch, I said with these last round of lockdowns, it didn't really affect me. And that's not exactly true to a degree. I had to take a 10% pay cut. I did get to keep working, but I took a pretty big pay cut. So yeah, that's put me in a tight spot. But a lot of people are even worse. A lot of people are even worse off. Now, there's no definite proof of this, but there's just a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about how these lockdowns are going to happen, or if more lockdowns are going to happen starting after the 20th. Biden's already talked about having a 100-day mask wearing policy. And with the supposed spikes in cases that we see every day, I mean, every day is like, it's a new record. It's a new record. Record deaths, record cases. And maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to dispute it because I'm not in the hospitals to see it, but I don't see it out in public. And it's just a matter of time for these lockdowns to get more severe. Do you think the middle class businesses, your mom and pop shops, your car mechanics, your restaurants, not the fast food joints, because they'll do okay, but your restaurants that you go sit in, dine in, do you think they're going to survive another round of these lockdowns? And I know that they won't. There's a lot of people that's going to lose big time. Another thing Biden said that he was going to do, he said his first days, plural days, in office, he was going to sign his new clean energy. He was going to take, he said executive action on clean energy. That sounds pretty severe to me, because usually things that would regulate the energy industry or the energy sector would have to go through Congress and would have to go through a lot of different, forms of scrutiny. But for him to take executive action on clean energy, and I haven't seen the exact details of that, what could that entail? And that's probably not going to be good news for a lot of people in the coal industry, a lot of people in the oil industry and things like that. But I will point out one thing on that. If he doesn't act the clean energy as much as he's supposed to, silver is going to go through the roof. So as far as financial prepping goes, I've always been a big advocate of precious metals. A lot of people say, precious metals won't hold value in SHTF. Yeah, they'll hold value in SHTF, but they won't hold value in an apocalyptic scenario. If there's a nuclear war and 90% of the population is wiped out, gold and silver is worthless. But if it's an economic collapse, they're going to be more valuable than ever. So, it depends on how you want to prep. I like silver, but I'm going to give you some numbers right here. All right. The average solar panel uses 20 grams or 0.643 troy ounces of silver. So 2/3 an ounce of silver in every solar panel may not sound costly given today's silver spot price. But if we think back, for those that have been around a while, I guess you say, older folk like me, myself, I'm getting old, but if we think back to catalytic converters on the cars, right? Catalytic converters. I'm sure everybody is familiar with the catalytic converters. And there was even a big time frame, big period where people were stealing catalytic converters off of people's cars. They were going out there at night and cutting these things off and going and selling them. Now, the reason that they did that was because when catalytic converters were originally produced, when they started all these hydrocarbon emissions, and all on cars, on vehicles and stuff like that, they used platinum inside these catalytic converters, because at the time in the 70s, platinum was not as expensive as gold. It was cheap. It was a lot cheaper than it is now. And they used platinum for years and years and years. But as they used it for years and years and years, well, there's only so much platinum in the earth. And, we don't produce elements. We can only produce, compounds and chemicals and mixtures. We can't produce elements, not in a costly manner. So as the supply of platinum went down and the demand stayed the same because they were using it in every vehicle in the US, then platinum skyrocketed. It became very expensive. And that's why we see platinum as one of the most expensive metals on the market right now. So to counteract this, those that have been invested in precious metals for a while, then you're familiar with palladium. Palladium's from the same family of metals as platinum. So as platinum's price began to increase to the point to where it was, almost impossible to use anymore in catalytic converters, they started researching and they found out that palladium, had the same properties. And at the time when they started using palladium in the catalytic converters, then palladium was about the price silver is now. And now palladium, since they've been using that in those converters, has skyrocketed too. And it's very expensive. It's not as much as gold is right now, but it's getting close to it. And that just shows the increase, because you think about the silver to gold ratio. Silver is pretty low on the totem pole right now. The only thing below silver is stuff like copper and brass, metals like that. But silver being used in solar panels, considering the amount it takes to make one solar panel, this is going to drive the cost of silver up, because silver is a precious metal. We only have so much of this element on the earth. And as that demand increases with solar power, then the price of silver is going to skyrocket. It wouldn't surprise me to see silver going at $100 an ounce by the end of this year. It's a good investment. I just want to throw that in there. All right. Where'd my screen go? Oh, my screen disappeared. So they're still taking those off of cars. That's true. All right. But once this administration takes office on the 20th of this month, I think there's things we're going to see, and it's going to happen. I hate to say in order, but I believe that they have a plan. Well, we know they have a plan. They have an agenda. And that's why they beat us in this election. Excuse me. That's why they beat us, because I hate to say it, but at this point in time, the Democratic Party is much better organized than the Republican Party is. We're disorganized. We're fractured. We have no actual leadership anywhere anymore. It doesn't seem like. But the Democrat Party is cohesive at this point, and that's why they won this election. It has nothing to do with votes. It has to do with organization. They were better organized than we were for this past election. And it shows. We lost big time. Whether there was, things that shouldn't have happened or not, we'll never really know the truth. I mean, we've seen a lot of things presented to us as evidence, but at this point in time, it's done and gone. And what we have to focus on is what's going to happen from here on out. And I'll tell you exactly what's going to start happening on the 20th. If they will ban the current president of the United States, a big time moneymaker for them on their sites, then they're going to start banning each one of us individually. And it's not just going to be Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, which I hear Instagram's not quite as bad about it, but I don't know. I don't really do Instagram, but this just goes to show that they have no problem whatsoever censoring us. All right. And with these censorships, a lot of people, I think we realize it. I mean, I see a lot of people in the comments. A lot of y'all have been with me for a while, and I appreciate it. And thanks a lot. But is gold, I want to touch on, is gold worth buying at the current price? It's high right now. That's up in the air. A lot of people are going to say, yeah, because they just want to sell you gold. But I'm thinking that when silver rises a little bit, it's going to start closing that gap. Gold's going to come down a little bit to close it. Right this moment, I think silver is the better investment. But in the end, you can't go wrong with buying gold. It's always going to be worth something. It's always going to be worth something. Yeah, gold and silver, much better than our paper money these days. And then if we start thinking about, really bad situations, and this is something that a lot of people aren't really looking far enough into the future right now. And I don't mean in the future 10 years from now. I mean, maybe 10 months from now at the most, is we see companies or countries like China and Russia right now are basically starting to work together militarily. And China is most likely going to invade Taiwan. I mean, I hate to say that because I have no proof of that. But from what we're seeing, China is going to expand. They're going to expand their presence throughout Asia there and throughout the entire region. And this is a major threat to us. It's a major threat to us for a couple of reasons. One, economically, it's a major threat. As our business is locked down, there will still, it's going to be a trickle effect. As businesses start to close down, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Everybody in America is going to lose their jobs tomorrow. It's going to be one by one by one by one. And so people are still going to be buying stuff. And where are we going to be buying this from? We're going to be buying it from online, from China, because the only internet access we have is provided by the 3 big companies that are in bed with China. So we're going to be supporting China and supporting their military and their military operations with our money we spend online. That's why it's so important to pay a little more if you can and do business with only American companies. I mean, right now, we have to take care of our home before we can take care of the rest of the world. And our home is not being taken care of. It's being given away. And it's only getting worse. LA Prepper, I hear you. How is it saying America first was such an offensive statement to so many people who live in America? And half of the people that live in America that took offense to that are drawing American benefits in one way or another, whether that be insurance, whether that be food stamps, whether that be security of being able to go to bed at night without somebody coming in, killing your family, like in third world countries that it happens. Marfugal News. Never heard of that in the moment. You know what? There's only one language that this new world order, because that's what it is. It's the new world order we're seeing right now in front of us. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we thought about that? How many times have people told us conspiracy on that? We're seeing it take place right in front of us. This is the new world order taking over our country. and then going to take over the rest of the world. I don't mean the U.S. is going to take over the rest of the world, because we're not. We're going to probably fall because of the decisions our leaders make. I can't talk. So this is something that's coming, and it's not going away. Our biggest downfall, our biggest problem as true Americans, as people who love our country and love our way of life, it's not about America. It's about our way of life. I mean, it is about America. I'm struggling to say this here. It's about how we want to live. We want to be free. We want the rights that we've had since we're kids. We're not asking for anything more, but we also don't want anything less. We've all done what we should do throughout the years to receive our rights, to be able to be free, to be able to work, to be able to make choices. But these choices are being taken away from us. And the first way that they take them is with freedom of speech. And we're seeing that today. And we saw it yesterday. If they take away the president of the United States freedom of speech, we're all very, very, very quickly going to behind that. And it's like a lot of people were saying, Parler right now. I'm not sure. I already had Parler on my phone, so I haven't tried to go re-download it on this iPhone I got. But they say that iPhone has, banned it. Google has banned it. You can't download it from there. I've seen a couple of other places. Let's see if I wrote this down. Okay, yeah. All right. On your phone. Now, I might be wrong. I'm trying to recall this off the top of my head from much earlier today. But if you cannot get to if you cannot get to Parler through Google or iPhone, the App Store, there's a site called Clout Hub, CLOUTHUB.com, and they will allow you to download it to your phone from that site. Or at least that was on the newscast this morning, and that was this morning, so that may very well be shut down by now. So what comes after our First Amendment's gone? Well, it ain't far behind either, and it's our Second Amendment. Maybe they're going to go one by one down the list. But our Second Amendment, we already know that was under fire for a very long time now. We got a little break for the last 4 years. But before that, for 8 years, it was under fire. And now, with the people that are appointed under the Biden administration, they clearly state there is no secret about this. They clearly state they're coming for specifically AR-15s. And, I like my AR-15s. I don't know about y'all. How many people's got AR-15s? Well, you don't got to say that. It's public forum. I shouldn't ask that. But I know I'm not, it's just, we never thought we would be in this situation. This is Nazi Germany. Think about this. Or this is reminiscent. Let me be correct, YouTube. This is reminiscent of Nazi Germany. It began with freedom of speech. You couldn't say what you wanted to say. They started turning people against each other. And let me tell you how they're turning people against each other right now. We see it. We see it with political Democrats and Republicans. But let me tell you the worst part of it. And that's our kids. Over the last couple of decades, with the Common Core school that we saw, this ridiculous schooling, the Common Core was absolutely ridiculous. I'm a teacher now. I teach adults, but looking at the curriculum they were giving to my kids, I had arguments with a lot of my teachers. Not my teachers, but their teachers. It was absolutely ridiculous, the type of curriculum they were putting in front of them. So now our children are going to be going back to school probably pretty soon. They're going to be sitting in cubicles, little plexiglass plastic cubicles. They're going to be 6 to 10 feet away from each other. They're going to all have masks on. They're not going to be able to touch anybody or touch anything that anybody touched. And they're going to be given this curriculum that we've seen over the last several years. It's not even education anymore. Not like it was. A lot of the things that I see in school does not teach critical thinking. It does not teach these kids the ability to solve problems. It basically makes them memorize a fact and spat it out on a test. There's no critical thinking. There's no problem solving. It's terrible. It's like the movie 1984 and even worse, because not only are they doing that, not only are we seeing that, but these children, your children, your grandchildren. They're growing up in this environment to where they live in fear. They live in fear. They grew up in fear. I grew up, thank you, Nancy. I grew up in a happy environment, and I give my parents the credit for that. I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. I consider myself. My mother and father still married 50 years, and they always did right by me. We weren't rich, but they always fed me. They always put a roof over my head, and they always loved me. And I never doubted that. So, I had a great childhood. I can't complain about that. But these kids these days, look at what they're doing now with what's happened in the White House this last week. They are actually dividing our families now. They're attempting to divide our families. When we see the same things, now I'm not condoning the White House, and I'm saying that for a YouTube disclaimer, but we see what happened at the White House. Then I look back to old news footage from, this summer, this fall, this spring, and I see worse. I see entire cities being taken over. I didn't see any FBI hotlines set up there because these people were out in the streets doing it. Nobody was doing anything to them. But suddenly this happens. And this is so inconsistent with what we've seen in the past. When we see Trump rallies in the past, they've been peaceful rallies. That's why it was so surprising to see this one take the turn it took. And you talk about false flag, that's what it sort of throws up in my mind, because this took a direction that no other Trump rally has ever taken before, not even gotten close to. I mean, how many of you out there, if you were up there, would have just, stormed the Capitol building? We got enough sense to know that wasn't going to change anything. I can go up there and I can kick that front door in, and I could even knock out a few security guards. But is that going to change the election? Is that going to change the future for my kids? Well, yeah, it would, because I'll be in prison. They're already talking about minimum 10-year prison times for the people that were just in there. Like the one guy, I'm sure y'all saw the footage, who was sitting behind Nancy Pelosi's desk, and he was sort of kicked back and had his hand up in the air. They're talking about 10 years from him. And, you got to ask yourself, really, 10 years. But I see footage of people being shot and beat to death in the streets over last summer, and I haven't heard any of that type of prosecution, any hotlines. Yeah, I would, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. Everybody's got a right to make their own decision. I took my kids out of school, actually a few years back now. And it was because of the curriculum and because of the bureaucracy and what I saw them being taught. They were being taught curriculum that made America just look terrible. They were being indoctrinated they were trying to be indoctrinated into young men who grew to be people that hated America and wanted to take it down. And that's the most disturbing thing about the younger kids these days is it's not their fault. This is what they're being taught. They're being taught this in schools. They turn on the TV, and especially now, what do they see? Trump supporters are terrorists. Trump supporters are the lowest form of life. I mean, I saw some CNN articles that I really ain't going to comment on because I don't want to go to jail for 10 years either. But it's really, I'm sitting here thinking my family members, are watching this. Your kids are watching this. And if you're a Trump supporter and your kid's watching this when you're not around, and they're thinking, well, mommy or daddy is a Trump supporter, are they a terrorist too? Look at what they're putting in their mind. These kids are already afraid to walk out in freaking public because of a disease that don't even really kill that many people. Not really. And they are changing our world with this younger generation. And they're the ones that's going to suffer. And they, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the powers that be right now. It's their fault. It's my fault for letting the powers to be get in office. Now we're at this turning point. We're past the turning point. We may be on the highway to hell if we don't watch out, because this right now, we have the new world order in place, basically. And we are not organized. We're not together. We don't have a cohesive team like they do. We're all fractured. You got Republicans fighting against Republicans. You got different militias that can't stand each other. You got different groups that are scared to work together because one of them might, take their supplies or something. What are we going to do? And that's the real question. And that's what I want, everybody to think about. Hotline for no mask. I wonder if I turn myself in for not wearing a mask, would I get a reward? I better not say that. My kids might turn me in and get a little extra money. No, they wouldn't. I'm just kidding. Crockett, amen, brother. We are past the political solution. How do we deal with this now? How do we deal with this? I would love to say Joe Biden's going to be good. And I don't think Joe Biden is the problem. I ain't going to lie to you. Biden is not the problem. Biden's a puppet. He's not going to be in office long. If he is, like I said, I'll come back and I'll eat these words 6 months from now. But he's not going to be in office long. He's a puppet that people knew. The Democrats loved Obama. They loved Obama. So Biden just come along with that. We've all heard the term coattails. Coattail president rides in on the coattails of the previous president. Well, he just waited 4 years to do that. He rode in on Obama's coattails. And it's not because he did anything good. I can't think of anything he did that was productive for this country. Not one thing. And he's been in there 40 years, and I would love to read something that he might actually done. Sniffy Joe. Yeah, Nancy. Sniffy Joe. That's crazy because that's my son talks about that all the time, about him sniffing children the way he does. It's really weird. I don't even know how to describe it because it's not something that normal people, it comes to their mind to do when they meet a child is to sniff it. But as weird as he is, he's a puppet. It's the vice president, Harris, and the speaker that we got to worry about. These are the ones that's going to try to transform our country. And AOC, whatever her name is, I just remember her as AOC. Y'all know who I'm talking about. She put out a tweet earlier today talking about now, and she said, now we can transform America. Well, when you transform something, that's not changing a law that's completely changing the structure of the entire nation. So they're telling us, that's what kills me about it, is they're telling us that they're going to take this nation, they're going to flip it upside down, and the people that loved it for what it was, we're going to be dropped on our heads. It's not going to be good for us. That New York bill, the A416, about the COVID camps, it's still in committee. Just thought I would touch on that a little bit. It hasn't made it past that. It's not up for a vote yet. But after what's happened, it would not surprise me to see this bill go through at this point in time. And the reason is they'll probably include something in with it that for those that are suspected, a threat in any way to public safety could also be, detained in one of these COVID camps. TDDR. Ignore the government and state and local laws. Change your tax status to starve the government so you won't have to pay until the last minute. And I use that strategy. I'll be honest with you. I don't pay federal taxes on my income tax. I basically, pay it at the end of the year. And I come out better like that. It's crazy, but I come out better like that for some reason. But I want to talk about what you're talking about there. And there's only one thing that the elite are going to listen to. There's only one thing the NWO is going to listen to. Truly, we can talk about, Civil War. We can talk about that's not going to work against our military. We're not going to have a civil war and beat the U.S. military. It's not going to happen. But we can beat them another way, and it's really easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. Sit at home and don't spend money. If we don't spend money, we don't pay taxes. Keep your money. Keep it in the bank. go stock up on groceries. I mean, what do we really need other than food, water, and, shelter? We've got clothes. I mean, everybody out there's got clothing on. I'm sure, well, then maybe not, but I've got clothing. So, I mean, stop spending money. Don't buy that extra hat. Don't buy that extra pair of shoes. No matter how good they look. Don't buy that extra shirt. Don't buy those expensive jeans. Wear the ones you got. The only thing they will ever listen to is when we, as the people, when we control the money. And believe it or not, they talk about, 99% of the people in the world or whatever, control all the money and, 1% work, whatever that is. I don't remember. But in reality, we control the money. We make the money. They pay us the money to work at their factories. But if I don't go out and I don't blow this money, if I don't go out and buy 2 liters, if I don't go out and buy bags of chips, if I stick to just what food I got at the house, enough to eat well, eat properly, and I don't buy the other things, I don't buy the frivolous items, that's going to hurt their pocketbooks. That's the only thing they would listen to. Imagine how receptive the U.S. government would be if every American citizen did not spend any money for 7 days. Just 7 days. If we stocked up today and spent no money for 7 days, how much notice would the government take at that point? We really do have power. And it's not just in the form of, some type of war. I'm talking about we have power. I don't have a lot of money, but I know that if I stop spending my money, the government's going to get less of it. And if you stop spending yours, the government's going to get less of it. The only way we control them is the way that they control us, and that's through the money. And guess what? Even though that, a very small portion of the world's population has most of the money, a very large portion of the world's population spends that money. If we curb our spending, stop and make a stand that way, we could make a difference. But the problem is that's harder. It's harder to get somebody to stop spending their money than it is to get them to go to a protest. I mean, really, most people don't like sitting at home and not spending money, not renting that movie, not subscribing to that streaming service, things like that. And, I understand. But when it comes down to it, the only weapon or one of the few weapons we have to fight back against the NWO is money, because that's what they want. They want our money. They could care less, what I do on the weekends or what I believe. They want my money. And as soon as I stop providing that money for them, I'm useless. But if enough people stop providing that money, then we're making a stand. I hear you, Homestead all straight. LA Prepper, you moving to Texas at some point. I hear you. There, don't they have a? I'm pretty sure they do. Didn't they pass a law that if you move out of California, you still got to pay state taxes for a certain amount of time? Yeah, Michael, I think it is. I'm just going to give you my true opinion on that. I think it is the end game population control. They're really, and like I had said before, the elite, the NWO does not want 3 classes of people, because basically right now we have 4 classes of people. When you talk about financial, we have the elite, which those are the ones that run the world. We know that, not because we want them to, but just because they do, because they got the money. And then we have the upper class, and these are your richer people, 150, 200K plus a year, that kind of deal. They're not exactly working class. They're more upper class, white collar. Then you have your middle class, your working class folks. And then you have your poor folks. What they want is elite and poor. They don't even really want the upper class. They don't want the middle class. And you know why? It's because we can make a living. We can fend for ourselves. We can take care of ourselves. We're not dependent on what the elites say we can have. I'm not dependent on government programs, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that for people that are, but I'm just saying they can't control me with that. They can't control me with taxes, unless they just go out of control with it. I mean, and they don't want the people in the middle class and the upper class. They don't want them to even exist anymore, in my opinion, because as long as we exist, we are the resistance. We are the resistance. And I hate to say it, but people who are totally dependent on the government to provide everything for them are going to be loyal to the government in the end so that they can still survive. People like us in the middle that are not dependent on the government, we're not going to have to be loyal. So that's why they don't want us. They don't need us. And I think one way or another, it's hard to say. It's hard to say which way it's going to take place, but it's definitely population control that we're seeing enacted here. We are, folks, seeing the New World Order take over this planet. I mean, everybody sees it. If you look at what's going on overseas, if you look at the riots, there's riots in Europe, there's riots in Asia. And we look at the military control that's going on in different places, and we look at what's going on here. Our government is not making a secret about what they want to do. I mean, we've seen a lot of the Congress men and women come forward lately talking about how dangerous Republicans are and what should happen. We should be punished, kind of deal. It's getting out of hand. I don't know really, words sometimes just can't describe things. Yeah, Major Ron. The deep state threatened Trump and his family by saying he set off a dirty bomb in every state if he didn't stand down and secede. There's been a lot of talk about, stuff like that. Iran came out and made an official statement on Twitter, the same place Trump was banned from, put up a post saying that when President Trump leaves office, he would never be safe. They basically were saying they were going to assassinate him because they were saying like vengeance for Soleimani, that general that, was killed. How, if Iran come out and said they were going to assassinate Obama tomorrow, I'm going to be against that. Obama's he was an American president. I can't say I agreed with Obama. I don't. I think he was a great speaker, but I don't agree with his policies. I didn't, but I would never support a foreign country coming in and assassinating an ex-president, no matter how bad you hate that president. But the left is embracing this. Dang, Michael. Good question. Wonder if there's something in the vax that can be activated through 5G. I'm going to look into that. Well, I'll tell you from a science standpoint, there definitely could be. There's absolutely no doubt there definitely could be, but I can't say there is. But that would make a lot of sense. Georgia Guidestones, Crockett. Human population under 500 million. And that's what they're shooting for. If we really think about the planet, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet right now. There's a lot of people on this planet. And that does not serve well for that 1% that has all the money. They're looking around. They're like, well, we're outnumbered by 7.9 billion or, however many. We're outnumbered by all these people. Of course, they're going to want to enact some form of population control. And what better way than a natural cause, a virus? Yeah. Mentos, more shutdowns, more personal and business bankruptcies, more dependence on those handouts. I mean, there's I forget the exact number. I put out a video a couple weeks back that I had the exact number of businesses or percentage wise that had shut down so far, middle class businesses due to these lockdowns. And the thing right now is those businesses did survive those first few rounds of lockdowns, but how many can survive the next round? And the ones that do, they're going to come out so far in debt to the government and to loan companies that are they ever actually going to be able to run their business again? They're just going to be indebted to someone else working, for very little to nothing. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be made homeless because of this. I was watching the news earlier today, and I've got to where I hate to watch the news because you just don't know what you can believe anymore. I used to be a fan of Fox News. I did, but these days, Chris Wallace and all those on there, it's like they completely flip. As soon as things don't go their way, then they just bend and cave and they become the other side. And I'm like, you little whatever, it's really crazy just to see the turnaround I've seen in Fox News, because I did watch it. The turnaround I've seen in the last couple of weeks from Fox News, they've turned almost into a liberal, just like CNN or, NBC. They've turned basically into that. Pretty soon we're just going to have one network, that one network that's controlled by the NWO. And it's coming. We see it coming. For those that think that the NWO is conspiracy, open your eyes on that. I mean, really, this has been talked about, and this isn't a Republican or Democrat thing. George Bush came out, and talked about the New World Order. And there's 1,000 videos out there that show him actually talking about this, not me just paraphrasing. And this is something that's going to, we're in the middle of it. There's no more speculation, no more conspiracies, no more worrying if and when it might happen. It's happening right now. It's happening in front of us, and they're not making a secret of it. And it's almost like they're laughing at us, like we can't do anything. And we are limited. We are very limited in what we can do. All right. So I want to look at some questions here and see some things maybe. Yep. Communists are notorious for turning the youth against their elders. And the same thing happened in Germany, and that was less than 100 years ago. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're seeing right now. And it's almost a spitting image of what happened in World War II. To begin with, Adolf Hitler was named Man of the Year by Time magazine. To begin with here, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are named People of the Year in Time magazine. They next start suppressing free speech. Then they indoctrinate the youth. Then they take our guns. Now, the only thing that's done out of order there is they've been indoctrinating our youth for the past several years. And I think a lot of people out there see that. Now they are slamming our free speech. They're slamming it because all it takes is Google, Microsoft, and Apple. That's the only three ones it takes to agree. And no conservative, nobody with any type of Christian values will ever be able to speak on the internet again. And that's all it takes is those three saying it. And they're saying it right now. They're already doing it. They're trying to ban Parler. From what I understand, the Rumble site's been doing the same thing. So it's just a matter of time before there will be no internet, except for those who want to listen to those government values, who want to be indoctrinated even further. So we're seeing a repeat of World War II. We're seeing an actual repeat of what led up to that. And what led up to that? I mean, what happened after that? We all know about the Holocaust. I mean, there's no, they secluded, they discriminated against, they took away their rights, they took away their guns, they secluded, and then they put them in concentration camps, the Jewish population. Not just the Jewish population, but anybody who didn't agree with what Hitler was saying, pretty much. What are we seeing here? We're seeing our free speech being taken away, our youth being indoctrinated, our Second Amendment under attack, and containment camp legislation being put before different committees right now. It's an exact replica of what happened in World War II. There's no disputing that. Anybody that disputes it simply doesn't read the facts, or they've never even heard about World War II. I don't know what to say, but there's no way you could compare the two. What happened then and what's going on right now, it's exactly the same. Who do you think's going in those camps this time? Well, it's not going to be Jewish, you know. It's going to be us. Yeah, Ninja Squirrel. Social media is a cancer that's dividing and polarizing our country. And social media, Facebook and Twitter, they have become experts at putting this person on one side and this person on the other with their search algorithms, or their logarithms. Or basically when I log in, if I were to go into Facebook right now and search, you know, how to build a wooden box, then for the next 10 days, all I'm going to see is ads and posts about how to build wooden boxes. So if I go on there and search, you know, Trump supporters storm White House, for the next 10 days, all I'm going to see is terrorists, you know, how bad these people were, how bad all Trump supporters were. And they split it. Facebook is the worst about it. I absolutely hate Facebook. And Facebook is the worst about it because they take it to the extreme. They take it to the absolute extreme. Michael, what do we do at this stage to prevent the end result? Step one, what we have to do is we have to organize. We have to organize ourselves, and we have to find means of communication that don't rely on social media. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say that, and I wish the heck I had a link I can put up, or I had something I can put up, and I can say this is a way we can all, you know, interact, and we can all work together. But that's what's so difficult about it. They've been doing this for years. And now that these big corporations are on their side, they don't have to worry about finding alternative means of communication. They don't have to worry about finding, you know, people local to them, or networking with groups in the general region and all that, because they can still do it all online. Now we are at the disadvantage, and that's where, you know, that's where it becomes difficult. I think what we're going to start seeing here, and this is why we need to figure out this quick. And this is why I offered up my website, SeriousSurvivor.com, to anybody out there that's a good software engineer that can help. I'm not making no money off this. I'm not trying to. That can help turn that site into a way that we can communicate with each other without being banned, without being censored. And I don't just mean videos. I mean real communication between one another. And we can actually, you know, get some networks going, get some groups going. And that's what I really want to do. But, you know, I'm not going to lie. I don't know how to do that on my own. I mean, I can build a website, but I don't know how to build a network to communicate with other people. So I could use a lot of different helps and a lot of different ideas, a lot of help on that. And I'm not making money on that, straight up. But, yeah, it's time. I mean, it's time to do something. Now, I'm not saying anything violent, because right now we're definitely outnumbered. I mean, you know, and I don't just mean by the votes and all that, but I mean by, you see what happened Wednesday. So violence is not the answer. Violence is only the last resort, and we're not at the last resort. We still have time. We still have time to take our nation back ideologically. And that's what we have to do, is we have to take it back, and we have to make people realize that, you know, what we want from this nation is simply what we've had before. We want freedom. We want the right to make our own decisions, and we want the ability to live our lives the way we see fit, as long as we're not hurting other people. But now we're faced with a government that's taking all of that away from us, all of it away from us. Soon they're going to dictate what kind of car you drive. They're going to dictate what kind of fuel you use. They're going to dictate what kind of energy you use. Then they're going to dictate what kind of house you live in. How long do you think it'll be before they condemn houses that are 20, 30, 40 years old with all this Green New Deal they got going on? You know, you live in an older home, pretty soon they're going to tell you that's not up to their green standard. You're done. just like they can come and condemn your house at any time right now, pretty much. And we know that. I mean, they are taking control by taking control of the energy sector. They've already got control of the free speech now. We see that. And I think for now, up until the 20th, we're probably all right. But after the 20th, that's when you're going to see things really kick off on the free speech aspect. The Second Amendment, we're not even going to hear about it. It's going to be taken care of behind our backs. They're going to pass probably some sweeping legislation that takes everything except for maybe black powder rifles or bolt action rifles or maybe single shot revolvers, or single shot pistols and single action revolvers. I mean, I don't expect us to have the opportunity to even give any backlash on the Second Amendment. I believe that they're going to push that through, in a day's time now that they control it all. Yeah, James, they already have spyware. I mean, I don't know who's a fan. I'm not a fan of anything except for my God and Jesus, But other than that, I'm not really a fan of anybody. But I was going to say Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden, when you say that name, you get a lot of different reactions from people because I've said it before and, got a lot of different reactions from people. But Edward Snowden, the man, don't know him, don't care. And don't mean that in a bad way. Just don't, no consequence there. But what he exposed that the government can do, everybody should have stood back in a moment and put a stop to it at that point in time. And put it, because he showed to us that the government at any moment in time can tap into any electronic device you use and listen to you, record you. They literally recording all of our emails. I mean, the government doesn't even make they don't even make a secret about that anymore. They record all your emails, all your text messages, all your phone calls. Nothing we do is ever in secret anymore. And I don't mean it needs to be, but you know what I'm saying? Nothing we do is ever private anymore. They have control of all that. Travel restrictions. Crockett. Yes. I believe within the first 3 months, because suddenly this coronavirus is going to have some more spikes again. I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to say. And I expect travel restrictions to be put into place. I expect travel restrictions to be pretty strict. I got a letter. I know I've told y'all this 3 or 4 times, but I got a letter that told me I was, essential worker, authorized to travel. I'm not an essential worker. I mean, come on, I don't keep America going. I teach classes, and sure, that's great. But the thing is, I work for a company that pays millions of dollars in taxes, so that makes me essential. If you work for a mom and pop shop, you're not going to be essential, and you're not going to be able to travel. I really do believe that these are going to be coming very soon. And we already saw the vaccination cards. We already see the vax passes. We already see the the passes to allow you to get into entertainment venues and things like that. Think about, the Soviet Union and Germany. You had to have papers. The military and the police could stop you at any point in time. And if you didn't show your papers that it was okay for you to travel, you were going to some kind of camp somewhere. And that's exactly what's happening here. Exactly. There's no difference. The only difference is the year in which it's happening. It's happening this year here. It happened years back over there, but it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either if this vaccine actually led to something worse. I agree with you there, Mad Max. And another thing, that reason I say gold and silver on currency, and Christopher, your comment made me think about that when you said digital profiles controlled by a centralized facet of the federal government. Is last stimulus. Remember the first stimulus package that they passed through? Well, at that point in time, the Democrats tried to get something passed along with that, and that was called your digital ID. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the digital ID. And, that's exactly what you're talking about. It's a digital profile that basically would require either some type of, implant or something like that. I'm not sure the exact specifics, but that would also include your digital currency. So this cash money is going to go away. Digital currency is going to take the place of it here pretty soon. And it may be, like we see the Bitcoin and all that. I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will still exist. Just like if I have money in my PayPal account, it's probably still going to exist for a while, things like that. But it's going to take the place of it with this digital currency that everybody's going to be on the same currency worldwide pretty soon, or, relatively speaking, relatively soon. Well, all right, everybody. It's been about an hour and 10 minutes. I really appreciate everybody listening tonight. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the cast, I should say, not video. Probably going to do another one Monday night if I can. I should be able to. I don't see why not. I'm going to be researching a lot of other things that we're going to talk about, some pretty interesting things, and trying to get myself back down to South Carolina. I probably shouldn't say that if my boss is watching, but yeah, I'm trying to get that back down there permanently. I've been getting about tired of being where I'm at. But thanks a lot, everybody, for coming out tonight. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. God bless everybody. Thanks a lot. And for now, Serious Survivor out.